Okay, the recording's begun. Awesome. Good evening and welcome. There's no one in the public gallery. Good evening and welcome to the first Audit and Governance meeting of this civic year. I'm Josh Williams, member for Park Ward and chair. I'm going to read the webcast notice. Please note, this meeting is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcast via the council's website. You should be aware the council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during a webcast will be retained in accordance with the council's published policy. There is someone in the public gallery. Members of the public, no, I'm not going to read out that bit. Okay. We have no apologies. We have a full house. Welcome, everybody. Are there any declarations of interest? Yeah. Perfect. Have you had a chance to look through the minutes? Most of us were present at the last meeting. Is everyone happy they are an accurate record? Thank you very much. We have no questions from members of the public this evening. I've got a couple of announcements. I'm going to read a couple of things out. Right, before we get started, here we go. First, welcome to the new member of the committee, Councillor Yeo. You're very welcome indeed, but your presence prompts me to think what training we might like. So last year, I felt it was quite hard for us to guess what it was we didn't know. But we've all read through the reports, some of us all of last year. We can all ask officers' opinions tonight. So if there's any areas we feel we want training on, please let me know. And we'll try and we'll have that conversation with officers. So it doesn't have to be now, although if you do have a thought now, please shout out. But yeah, let me know and we'll try and produce some training on any areas we're not fully comfortable in. Okay, perfect. That's number one. I'm sure we all watched with interest the policy committee last week, was it? No, some of us are on policy, which recommended the new SIPFA guidance and revised terms of reference for this committee. That's going to go to full council for final debate and confirmation in October. But before then, Paul Harrington will bring us a report to our meeting in September. Detailing that guidance and the changes. That'll give us, as members of Audit and Governance, a chance to chat through those changes, see if there's anything we are concerned about or are particularly happy with. And if we do have any comments, in theory, we can send those through to full council as a note for when full council discusses it in October. That was my second one. Third, we had expected an update from EY, our external auditors at this meeting. We didn't expect a final sign-off on the next set of accounts, but we did expect an update. That was minuted in the minutes I'm about to sign. Unfortunately, I didn't have any communication from EY, but our officers have been told that there's no one available this evening, which is a bit disappointing. If we want to, we could feed that disappointment back to EY through our Director of Finance. Should we wish. I don't know if anyone has any comments or thoughts. Councillor Emberson.
My view would be that we should, given the set meetings. It's not like the ad hoc meetings, so I think it would be helpful just to say it's a shame. You know, you don't have to overkill it, but just to say it's a shame you couldn't make it.
I agree. Thank you, Councillor Emberson. I mean, EY have worked really hard with our officers. It would have been nice to thank them for that hard work here in person, but they're not here. So perhaps we could gently pass back our disappointment. That, I think, moves us quite neatly on to the financial accounts update, which is from our Chief Accountant, Mark. Would you like to say a few words of introduction?
Thank you, Chair. Just got a very short update report to bring committee this evening. So the first thing to notice since the last committee meeting, we have now concluded the 2019-20 accounts fully signed off and on our website as a formal document. And committee will recall that this was a significant improvement in our previous 3 sets of accounts which were qualified. The 19-20 we managed to remove that qualification, so we had an unqualified opinion on our statement of accounts. Our first time indeed since 15-16. There's one remaining matter with regards to 19-20, and that is for audit fees. They're not concluded at this point. The process is that EY have to discuss that with the PSAA in the first instance and then open a negotiation with us. We've not had communication that's started yet, and we don't have an indication on what our final fees will be at this time, but we will bring any updates back to committee as soon as we are aware of them. So where are we in progress? Well, we are in the middle of our 2021 audit process, which actually started last August. As it stands at the moment, there's a table on page 12 of the papers, which will show that at the time of writing, that of a total of 307 total areas of queries raised by EY, some 248 were actually responded to by council officers, and they were waiting for EY to review. 53 queries had been accepted by EY and closed, and at that time we had 6 queries that were outstanding. The underlying position there is that we are mostly through the volume of work at that point, and the board is firmly in EY's court to review. So that was a position at 19th of June. Just bringing that up to date to today, it's broadly the similar position. We have 10 queries outstanding now. There have been a few more that have been requested of us to work through, but fundamentally we are looking at responding to remaining queries. EY will produce their review work and probably will come back with some more queries over the course of July and August, which we will respond to, no doubt. But the bottom line is that we are expecting, and we've had this feedback from EY, that we are expecting that they will bring a substantially complete audit findings report to the September committee meeting, this committee meeting. They don't think they will finally sign off the accounts at September, but they think it will be very shortly after. So certainly within October is our planning expectation. There are no significant issues arising from the accounts, and as far as officers are aware, we continue to meet weekly with EY just to ensure that the continuity audit process is in place. Looking forward, we are also drafting our 21-22 accounts. We are most of the way through that. We do have to have some feedback from EY on the 2021 audit process so that we can reflect any improvements in our 21-22 draft accounts before we publish those. We are looking to publish a good quality set of 21-22 accounts, probably around August, September. So I think there'll be enough continuity of the prior year's audit undertaken such that we were in a safe position to do that, to get the next set of accounts published and out for a public inspection. The national position is, we've talked about this a few times, it is not recovered. There are significant delays in English local authority external audits currently. The latest information on that, which was issued from DLUC just a couple of days ago to the council, shows that some 27% of 21-22 audit accounts, only 27% have been finalised, and in total for all years, and some of them go back to 15-16, there are over 520 external audit opinions outstanding as at today. There is a significant delay across the sector in English authorities, and DLUC have been working over the last year and a half with potential proposals on how to recover that position nationally. They have issued some guidance and updates, and just in the last couple of days that we as officers are reading through. It doesn't give any answers at this stage, but what it does indicate is that all leading players of the sector, so councils, treasury organisations, auditors, they've all agreed that we do need to look at ways to bring the entire audit process up to date. And they're looking at a framework to do that. So they were likely to issue revised guidance for how both preparers of the accounts can prepare their accounts and how the auditors can audit them to a certain standard in a timely manner, such that we can bring the whole process up to date. Now, DLUC is still going to go through more information over the remaining summer months so that we can understand that. I do not have the information. I don't have the dates because they're not published yet. But we do nevertheless believe that this is something that we need to work within just to produce. So I think if you dovetail the national position with our own position in Reading, and our position is we should get 2021 accounts signed off September, October, 21-22 probably by next January's committee. So that'll be a much shortened audit process for that year as a result of lifting the qualification on our accounts. That will certainly help us. So by the time the national arrangements start to cut in, we would probably have caught up most of our own processes by then at the same time. So I think we're in a reasonably good position to catch up, and we will continue to maintain our focus and resources both within RBC and a continuation of the team by EY as well, because we do have consistency of knowledge and officers working on that, and that does help us to catch up. So I think we should be in a position probably next summer to be fully caught up, but it will depend on the requirements of the auditors and the Financial Reporting Council and DLUC and on what the expectations of auditors are in this process, and what the expectations both on preparers and on audit committee members as well will be through that process. So as soon as we know more, perhaps it's a topic for a specific training session to go through. That might be a good idea looking forward. One last point I will mention. You might see in press that there are some other authorities that have quite considerable delays in their accounts. Sometimes that, as a result, that has some issues with financial resilience associated with them. I won't go through any background, but you can do your own research. You're probably aware of some. That's not necessarily the case at all for Reading. So we've brought a much more robust financial position, and you would have seen through the last year's outturn report to the policy committee that we've actually increased our reserves, and we've got a reasonably healthy level of general balances and earmark reserves as an organisation, such that Director of Finance Darren is able to give appropriate assurance on financial resilience over the medium term, which is good news for us at Reading. So I'll stop at that point, Chair. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, we're asked to note the completion of the 19-20 accounts, which even I signed, which was exciting, and the progress we're making towards 2021 and 21-22. That's just a string of numbers there, isn't it? Do we have any thoughts or questions or comments? I've got Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. What a fantastic report, and thank you very much. Yes, it really sort of brings a smile to one's face, and it's even more so when you're explaining how the process is going for the 2021, and you're thinking this September, are you? It would go through there, and then following on with the 21-22, and let's see how the changes that are going to be made to the process. And I do agree that for what you've said about the training, I think it would be a good idea if as guys were part and parcel of that and take that on. Because my initial question when I read this was to say, right, when is the conclusion of the 2021? You answered all my questions. I just think it's been a great report. I think everybody's worked very hard. The only thing, of course, is that 27% of our fellow councils that aren't even finalised, which to me is sad, but the hard work everybody's put in has pulled us over. Thank you.
No, it's brilliant. Comments are great. I've got Councillor Mitchell and then Councillor Gittings.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate, Councillor Edwards, I think the committee should note our thanks to officers, Darren and all his colleagues, for the ongoing work and the progress that clearly is being made. Painfully slow as it may appear to the layman, we are getting there, which is great news. The sign-off of 1920 is a significant milestone, as the report notes. And the fact that we've had an unqualified opinion for the first time in 8 years, and that too is good news. All I would say is, to again reiterate what Councillor Emerson said at the start, it's a shame that EY aren't here tonight to answer any particular questions around that, but thank you for the comprehensive update from yourself. I do feel that EY, given the scale of the work that they're committing and frankly the costs that they are costing us in getting this done, should almost compel them to be at every meeting. But I appreciate diaries perhaps do not allow that at times. But if we can reiterate that to make sure that we do get a significant report for the September committee, again, as the report makes clear, I think we'd be very grateful. But thank you for the work ongoing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gittings.
Yeah, I mean, I think as people have commented, it is good news that we're catching up, and it appears to me we're catching up fast, because, as you know, when we've come to this committee, it's been difficult, and I'm going to say it's going to be difficult politically, actually, because, you know, even some lecturers appearing in a certain by-election that's happening at the moment is suggesting that, you know, the council was in some way negligent and we're wasting money, and there is of course a cost that EI are charging. Shame they're not here tonight for this extra work. But my question is, it appears from looking at the basis report, from us being perhaps, let's say an outlier with our accounts, because you know we did have to catch up. Now, on the basis that we're likely to catch up by next summer with the 22-23, we're, excuse the expression, an inlier. Would you agree with that?
No, I would by that position. I think it would be a excellent position to be in, and to be honest, that's where we should be, and then upper quartile for the next phase. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Gittings. We're not trying to score political points, but I'm sure outside of this meeting we all are. But yeah, but inside we're not. We're doing our best not to, anyway. Thank you, because you forgot it. Yeah. Well, first of all, then, please do minute our thanks to officers from all committee members, new and old. Congratulations from the chair, the first unqualified set of accounts for a long time. I wonder, although we've talked about this for a few minutes, could you just say a little bit more on what that unqualified status means for the 21-22 accounts, because you said those would be able to now move considerably faster. Is that the materiality that we've discussed previously? Is that the right word? And that some members are happy with the concept of, and probably others not always entirely happy with it?
Yes. So setting aside the assurance that we have on the position of our reserves relating to the medium-term plan, which is good, when we look at the audit process for 21-22, the auditors will assess our control environment as being stronger than what it was in prior years, and what that means is that they will raise the materiality level, the level on which that they are concerned with relevant issues that relate to our accounts, and they will lower the amount of transactional testing that they wish to undertake as a consequence of that, because they can apply more reliance on our control framework. So in turn, instead of seeing 600 sample queries, we might see 200 sample queries, which is saying a lot, but it takes a long time to work through, because some of those we have to get back to all of them we have to get back to source information, which includes tracking transactions right back to bank statements in a number of cases as well. So the volume it takes to actually, the time it takes to process that's the real driver that why things take so long. Couple that with the fact that we have actually been improving our information basis as well. means that we are more likely to have positive results through our audit testing process. So if we have a query, the audit process ought to be, well, actually, do we need to extend our audit samples and ask even more questions of the council, which they do. They have to do that. We are coming away from that position. So as we move into, we had high volumes for 2021 because that was the accounts weren't closed for 1920 to help there. But for 2021, it's going to be considerably less. So EY believe we should be looking at December, January being substantially complete on the following year's accounts. So that process, which won't start till probably September, beginning October, might take 3 to 4 months, whereas the current set we're looking at started nearly a year ago. So it's a significant improvement, you'll see, in time as well, which is why I will get the confidence to say we should be caught up in time with a national catch-up position to be consistent with. So we're just pressing on with our improvements as best we can.
So yeah, brilliant. So that's not just improvement on the set of accounts we've moved through. That hard work means the future accounts will go a lot smoother and a lot faster. Perfect, thank you. And as Councillor Mitchell pointed out, it would have been great to have EY confirm those dates rather than coming through you, but we'll get that next time. Do we have anything else on this item, or are we happy to note with our thanks the report and progress made? Yep. Perfect. Thank you all, and thank you to the team. Right, that goes on to item 5, the internal audit annual assurance report. This comes from our chief auditor, Paul Harrington. Paul, would you like to introduce for us? It's quite lengthy. There's lots of information because it covers the whole year. I wonder, could I ask you for us to give us some background to your overall opinion and some context as to what that opinion means in your introduction? Thank you.
It's gone off. Back on again. Right, okay. So the accounts and audit regulations and public sector internal audit standards require me to give an annual assurance opinion on the council's internal control environments, governance and risk management. And while no assurance can ever be absolute, on the basis of the work completed during the course of the year, I've concluded that reasonable assurance can be placed on the adequacy and effectiveness of the council's internal control framework within those areas audited in 2022-23. What I must caveat that with is this opinion does not imply that internal audits have reviewed all risks relating to the organisation, and assurances should be taken from other sources. The opinion is expressed using the same scale used in the internal audit report opinions. So that's the scale ranges from substantial to reasonable through to limited to no assurance. So we're now at a reasonable assurance opinion. The opinion is reflective on the number and level of assurance opinions provided throughout the year and the improvements required to the control framework in some of those areas where weaknesses were identified in the past. So as of all my reports, the details in the appendix. So if I just take you to page 23 of appendix 1, and as a prerequisite for giving an assurance opinion, I'm required to confirm the effectiveness of the internal audit service and its resultant fit for purpose to carry out work that informs my annual assurance opinion. So we do that by self-assessing us against the public sector internal audit standards. Once every 5 years, we have an external assessment. Our external assessment was undertaken this time last year by CIPFA, the professional body for public finance and accountancy, and they concluded that we fully complied with the public sector internal audit standards. So that just gives you some assurance that the team have got the appropriate skills to give this opinion. So why have I gone for a positive opinion, and why is it reasonable? So one of the most significant areas to influence my annual assurance opinion are the results of the audits of the key financial processes and systems within the council. So over the years, we have had real concerns with our financial controls and some of our financial processes and systems. And that resulted in a number of very negative assurance opinions going as far back as 16 and 17, where we gave limited assurance. We've seen significant improvement in the control environment within these key financial systems and processes over the years. And we're now at a point where all systems, all financial systems have received a positive opinion, bar one. And that's the intercompany arrangements between the council and Brighter Futures. That's still at limited. That's due a follow-up. That follow-up is just commencing. Hopefully we can report back in September that that's also been given a positive opinion. So that's really the basis for why I've now can give it a positive opinion, which was the same as last year. I gave a positive opinion last year, but I think we're seeing that continuous journey of improvement. So on page 27, you can just see a graph showing the positive versus negative assurance opinions over the last, well, since 2018-19, but I think the real issue started as far back as 15-16. On page 28 are the limited assurance reviews, direct payments. Now, housing repairs and cyber security is picked up in the next report on the agenda. Deputy and appointeeship and deferred payments, those are the areas that we gave limited assurance opinions this year. In terms of the governance arrangements of the council, there's still key pieces of work to be completed, such as updating the financial regulations and ensuring that the finance system reflects the scheme. Sorry about that. So yeah, so there are some key pieces of work that needs to be done. Also, I talk about the local government transparency code. Again, a few years ago, we were in a bad situation with that. That's now improved. We've noted good progress, and likewise with freedom of information compliance. Although we're still not at that 90%, but Mr. Graham's report is coming up later on the agenda. There's certainly been improvements in the process. As part of my annual assurance reports, I've got to give an update on the performance of the internal audit service. On page 31, you will see our key performance indicators. One of the disappointing indicators is the promptness of management responses to draft report. We have 15 days, but unfortunately taking a lot longer to get those back. And then on page 32, it just runs into the annual reviews that we undertake, and on page 33, section 8, that wraps up the work of the counter fraud team and their results over the past year, comparing them with the two previous financial years. That is it. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Darren Carter, do you have a question?
So not a question, but one of the question you asked at the outset, Chair, was around what's the benefit or what's the impact of having a reasonable assurance annual audit opinion. I think there are three benefits. One is that we've already talked in Mark's report about the amount of testing that EY have to do at the moment. One of the reasons for that is that they can't place assurance on our financial controls, because our own judgment is that our financial controls didn't provide reasonable assurance in previous years. So actually the fact that Paul reaches this judgment for this year and last year will mean EY can place greater assurance and therefore reduce the amount of testing they have to do. The other thing we should bear in mind is that even though we have an unqualified audit opinion for 2019-20, we still have an adverse value for money judgment based on two things. One is the performance of our children's services, but the other one is about our financial controls. I'm expecting that adverse opinion to be lifted once we get into the years where Paul's actually given a reasonable assurance opinion. We still need to do that. And thirdly, in terms of me, I have a statutory responsibility as the Section 151 officer for the proper administration of the council's financial affairs. And the way I get assurance around that is for the work of Paul and his team. So it's critically important to me, my statutory role, to make sure that we have got, as a minimum, reasonable assurance of our financial controls.
Thank you very much. Members were asked to note the report, and all of the comments from both of our officers have put that in context. Do we have any comments, questions, thoughts? No, I've only got a... See, the problem is with a lot of the internal audit reports, they contain answers to all the questions already, which is annoying because it doesn't leave me with much to say. But I'm going to say one thing, because Paul mentioned it. We've got a key indicator where management responses, they're just not coming back within 15 days of a draft report going to them. We're getting 39% back coming back to internal audit. I wonder, members, if we would like to just minute that we would like to see that percentage significantly increase when we see the report next year. And maybe we could politely draw senior management's attention to that minute, because I don't think 39% is good enough. This committee relies really heavily on reports from internal audit and the work that they do and the assurance we get from them. And so we need to see that system working behind internal audit and management responding. Would anyone, would members be happy to note that we would like to see that percentage increase? I'm getting nods all round. We will do that, and if we could, yes, I've got a thumbs up from my right. That's perfect. I don't think I've got anything else. I read this through thoroughly, and it's a really detailed and informative report. So with our thanks to the internal audit team, are we happy to note the report? Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you. No, we don't thank Paul Harrington yet because he's got to do another one now. Item 6, the internal audit quarterly progress report. So now we're going to get into some detail on the things coming back to us directly at this meeting. So this contains one restricted appendix which refers to and gives a little bit more detail on the cybersecurity report. If members wish to discuss the specific details contained in that appendix, then I think we'll move this agenda item to the end where we can close the meeting and have a closed session to discuss. But if members don't want to discuss the specific information in that appendix, then that's fine. We can just carry on. We already have the broad introduction to the cybersecurity report, and we already have the recommendations coming through on the tracker, which we'll see later on. So if we're happy to discuss only on those terms, then we can continue now. Does anyone wish to discuss in a closed session? No, it looks like we're all happy to just talk on. If at any point it feels like we're straying into something confidential, officers will shout up or members just say, and we can change our mind on that. Okay, so over to Paul again for an introduction, if we can.
Thank you, Chair. So this is my quarterly report for Q1 of this financial year, and it covers those audits which have been finalised between April and June. So as always, the detail is in the appendix, but I'm going to take it as the appendix has been read, and I'm just going to talk through very quickly the covering report. So in terms of positive assurance reviews, we looked at the accounts payable system. We found that to be working satisfactory. However, we do recognise that there are pressures, particularly around how suppliers are set up and the time taken to set up new suppliers. But in terms of performance, we're currently at 92% of invoices are paid within 31 days. We've also given a substantial opinion on the control environment for budget setting and monitoring. We believe that is robust. We've given a positive assurance opinion on the general ledger. In terms of journal control, that has been a concern of internal audit in the past, but we've now got clear separation of duties, appropriate authorisation and approval of journals, clear description supporting documentation of journals, timely processing of journals, and probably the most important thing is a continuing reduction in the number of journals processed compared with previous years. So that's good. We've done 2 follow-up reviews, so where we give a limited or no assurance opinion, we will go back and follow up. One is adult social care client contributions. We've recognised good progress has been made in implementing the audit recommendations. And likewise, the inflationary uplift process. For those of you that have been on this committee a couple of years, you will note that in 21-22 there was an overpayment of a adult social care supplier of 1 million. All that money was recovered, but the reason for that was the incorrect calculation of the inflationary uplifts, and that's now been all corrected, and there's now a robust process in place, so that's good. The 2 areas where we've given limited assurance reviews are housing repairs, where we identified several areas with scope for improvements, sort of lack of compliance and inconsistencies with various processes followed. And the other one is cyber security, and the cyber security is at the time of the audit there was no clear remediation strategy to highlight risks linked to a timetable of achievable improvements. What I just must stress is that any audit is a snapshot of that moment in time. So for a good example would be the fieldworks for cyber security was at the beginning of this calendar year. So I fully expect 6 months on a lot of those controls have now been put in place and the position has changed, but we will go back and do a follow-up at some points. So in terms of appendix, the attached appendix, which I'm not going to talk through, just quickly on pages 52 and 53, that shows the audit plan for the year, those audits we got scheduled and progress of the audit plan. And then just on the last page, page 54, there are investigations that have been undertaken in Q1 of this financial year. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Members were asked to note the report. Does anyone have any comments, thoughts or questions? I've got the Vice Chair, Councillor Dennis.
First of all, I've got to say, Paul, very good report, very informative, a lot of detail in there, and I got an awful lot out of it. I wanted to, it's not so much a question, but I just wanted to state that I want to express my concern regarding the findings presented in the final internal audit report on the housing repairs. The contents of the report highlighted troubling situation within the housing repairs department, and it aligns with the first-hand experience I've encountered through my casework. It is evident that there have been significant failings in the housing repairs process, as numerous council tenants have been struggling to get their repairs addressed in a timely manner. This situation has caused undue stress and inconvenience for those who depend on the council services. One of the critical issues that require immediate attention is the substantial backlog of open jobs. According to the report, there are currently over 8,000 open repair tickets as of mid-February 2023, with more than half of them being overdue. The backlog is unacceptable and demands urgent resolution. I firmly believe that the housing repairs team need to prioritise the resolution of these outstanding repair tickets as their primary focus. By addressing this backlog, we can start to restore the faith in our tenants in the council's ability to provide essential services promptly and efficiently. In light of the gravity of the situation, I propose that this committee invite the Assistant Director of Housing and Communities to attend the next Audit and Governance Committee meeting scheduled for September. This will provide an opportunity for the Assistant Director to present an update on the progress made in tackling the repair backlog and addressing the systemic issues identified in the audit report. By engaging in the constructive dialogue with the responsible officers, we can gain insights into their plans for improvement, hold them accountable for their actions, and ensure that appropriate steps are being taken to rectify the problems in the Housing Repairs Department. It is our duty to act decisively to address these shortcomings and ensure the well-being of our council tenants and overall integrity of our services. So that's it, my statement.
Thank you very much. That was a very welcome statement, because I think it's important that we realise that these are not just reports coming through, these affect people's lives in Reading, and thank you for that. I can't recall a report coming back with so many recommendations on it. I can't remember how, was it 13, 14 or something on this one alone? The tracker will show us on a later item that those are a mixture of red, amber and green still. So I think it's entirely valid to request an officer speak to us on this. Members, do you have any other comments at all? Councillor Emberson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I completely agree with Councillor Dennis that it's right and proper that we do invite the Assistant Director. And I think, you know, what is also pertinent is the context. I'm not going to be a mouthpiece and play, you know, defensive, but there is a context here in terms of repairs in the market that we are in. And a lot of housing associations are currently under Ombudsman watch for repairs, as I'm sure people have seen in the news. And I'm reassured that we're not there, but there's clearly a lot of issues that need sorting. And on the backlog, the most recent update I had, albeit it was in June, was that there are currently 5,000, because this report was at February, I think it says. Yeah. So I understand that extra staff have been hired to go through this backlog and look, and a lot of it is admin related in terms of looking at duplications in the system and whatnot. So I understand they kind of set themselves a target of 3 months, which conveniently is the end of September, to sort that out. So I think it's right and proper and timely for, you know, housing to come along and talk to that context in the report. You know, it does talk to the staff and issues, and it's not the chief auditor's job to set the scene. And I think, you know, we need an officer to come and do that and explain how it has got to this position, because, you know, it is the bread and butter of being a landlord, is your repairs, your decent homes and making sure everything's in order. So we do need to get our house in order, and I'm reassured that we are. And the complaints, which is also reported into me, have shown that, you know, tenants in the main are not, you know, screaming and shouting as they are at some housing associations. And, you know, the prime casework I get where tenants are at their wit's end is housing association stuff. And I'm not saying I've not had, you know, council tenant casework, but once it gets in the system, I'm reassured that generally speaking, it is dealt with. And I've not seen, you know, really bad mould, for example, where we have seen that in the private sector in housing associations. So just wanted to add that context, but fully support the suggestion that the Assistant Director should be the one to come and do a bit more of that context scene setting.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I'm very happy to support requesting that an officer comes into the next meeting. It looks like everyone's nodding. Does anyone have any other comments? We can discuss the cybersecurity if we wish, but maybe we're all hesitant because it was a restricted appendix. Councillor Thompson.
Well, just what I think is probably not a restricted question. Do you have any idea when you do the cybersecurity sort of follow-up that you would be doing?
Not the current time, no. So the audit the report was finalised probably in June. The field work was done beginning of this calendar year. We usually follow up between 12 and 18 months, but if I can, I have a contingency in my plan for follow-up audits. But yeah, I would like to do it sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Chair, I don't know if I can add to that.
Oh, we've all suddenly swung round to look at the big screen on the wall. Good evening. If this is being recorded, and it is, we have Charlie Stewart on the line. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Yes, could you help us out?
No problem, Chair. My apologies to the committee that I couldn't be there in person. The train strikes unfortunately kept me at bay in York. Just to add to that, although the audit may be some time, the external audit, the Cyber Essentials Plus audit, and also the future government audit, which is not a requirement, but we are also doing that as well. The first of those will be reporting within the next couple of weeks. The second of those, which is a much more in-depth audit, which we have asked to take part of as part of a trial that government are doing with local councils, will take a few more months. But the first one, which is the Cyber Essentials Plus, which is noted in the report and is the most essential for us, we will have the report on that in the next few days. In fact, I already have the interim report, but if you wanted more information on that, then I suggest we do go into a restricted meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Does that additional audit report sound like something members would wish to see? As just mentioned, that would be in a closed session. So it may not be of value to us. I think one of my things on cybersecurity is we're going to see it again in the risk register, and then we're going to see it again mentioned in the final report from Mike Graham, and we're going to see it tracking in the audit recommendations tracker. And I wonder if we should have some kind of in-depth report that brings all of that together for us. And if it needs to be closed session, then that's fine. And if it can be open, then that's fine. But because we're seeing it on so many different reports, and it is read, I believe, on the risk register, although I don't have it in front of me now, it felt as though if we were going to look at something in depth, then that would probably be the thing to look at. But maybe we discuss that. Well, I've brought it up now. Do members have any thoughts? Yeah, Councillor Gittings.
Well, I was going to speak on this item, but I do concur with that. I mean, already we're going to have the session on housing, which I think is obviously, is vital because it's limited assurance. Cyber security. I mean, Hackney Council lost 12 million for ransomware attacks. And I say it's covered disparately throughout, almost threading through this agenda. Now, part of that may need to be in a part 2 session, but I think this is about actually having the right systems in place, but also the right training in place. And look, councillors are amongst us as well. We could easily press a button and find, and that's what's happened, isn't it? The people have done that with almost a bit like if you go onto Facebook and click on the thing and you find that all you hacks, somebody's been hacked and all your contacts given away. That's the world we live in. And I think, it is public money we're dealing with here, so we can't really afford to sort of waste 12 million and have all our systems closed down our website. So I think it is important, Chair. I think that's a very good suggestion. And we could sit, either a special session or as a part 2 after the next meeting or the meeting after that, because I think we need to collate a lot of information together. What are the training needs of the staff, councillors and management, and what are the real risks? It's kind of difficult to sort of really know.
I'm not quite sure where to go, so I might look to officers for some advice. Do officers think that all of those disparate things could be brought together into a single report for us to a future meeting? That might be a question for Charlie. It doesn't necessarily have to be September if that doesn't fall as the right meeting, but a meeting this year where we could gather everything together, including the risks, the training and everything, into one report?
Yes, I think that would be an excellent thing to do. Paul would have to, say again when the internal audit inspection may take place. Certainly the Cyber Essentials, which is the key external review, will have been done by that, and a lot of work will have been done to make any changes on what they bring in. So we'll have one key piece of information. You may also want to wait for the future government's report as well, but that won't be, I don't think, available for September. So the report after that might be useful, and we could then add in the internal audit, because I presume, Paul, by that time you will have done a review.
Oh, yeah,
possibly, but I will be placing reliance on what the Cyber Security Essentials report says. Hopefully I can place some assurance on that report, and that will inform whether I do a follow-up or how quickly I do a follow-up, if that makes sense. But yeah, I've got a limited resource, and I can't guarantee I will be able to do that follow-up within in the next 6 months.
I think then can members request a specific report bringing everything together on cybersecurity within the next 3 meetings. So this civic year, at whichever meeting is the most convenient when everything falls together. And we'll leave that format to officers. And again, we'll leave whether it is open or closed, restricted or whatever to officers' best judgment. But I guess we're requesting something coming back within this civic year. And if that's okay, we'll minute that request. And
Yep.
we've got nods. That's excellent. Thank you very much, all. Oh gosh, had we come to, so we need to minute that we have noted the report. We need to minute our request for an officer to talk to us on housing at the next meeting, if possible, given that one was very pressing, and minute a report coming back this year on cybersecurity. Other than that, we'll be tracking all of these recommendations through the audit tracker, which comes later on in our agenda. But for future meetings, I've asked if it could just follow straight on from the internal audit reports, and we'll shift that in the agenda order. Does anyone else have any thoughts, or are we happy to note all of that? Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you to the internal audit team. And we move on to item 7, strategic risk register, with an introduction from Robin Pringle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So this report looks back at the strategic risks that have been managed over the period April to June and those which are carrying forward in the next few months. No new risks have been added to the strategic risk register and no risks have been removed. There are 11 risks in total. This is obviously the same 11 risks that we had from the last report. 4 scores have changed though. The risk associated with social inclusion has dropped slightly, the risk score. Safeguarding adults and children, finance and communicable disease outbreaks have risen slightly. You'll note that we are now rolling out training to service managers and team managers now, moving our way through the organisation. And finally, we are planning to arrange further member training. It has been well received in the past, probably in the period September to December.
Thank you very much. Members were asked again to note the report. Do we have enough information, the right information? Are we happy? Councillor Emberson.
Yeah, the only point I was just going to make is there's a lot of like in progress, like noted throughout, and some of them like, you know, like the new school, like clearly that's in progress. But I wondered whether for some of the bullets it would be helpful to have a little commentary, and some of them do have that. And I know it's probably quite onerous to ask for that, but I just thought, you know, they kind of track, they are what they are. We roughly understand what they mean because it's complicated in the way in which you calculate them. But I just wondered if what the committee's view was in, you know, just a little blurb on some of them, you know, because as it stands, they are what they are. They just track every meeting. So a bit like with the recommendations, we get a little blurb about, you know, where we're actually at. So I think that might be helpful. But otherwise, I'm happy with the report, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I just check, do you mean under the existing mitigations where there's a little bit of red that says in progress or complete? Yeah, okay. Some of them give us a sentence, some of them just say in progress. It does sound onerous, but it does sound worthwhile. Otherwise, we are receiving very similar information each time. Members are looking. Councillor Yeo.
Yeah, because if you look at specific ones, some of them don't, but some, there's at least 1 or 2, the whole report is in progress. I think each line is, so it doesn't, without any sort of mitigating comments, you don't know enough about what that means, I guess.
Yes, I think, okay, let's get, it's surely important that we understand that the mitigations are the right ones that are being taken, and they are being taken. We can't necessarily take it for read just because it's written down that it's happening. Is that, again, that does sound like some considerable work for officers to prepare, but maybe we could get a comment.
Yes, Chair. I think We'll look at how we do that. But what we've actually done is reduce the amount of information on the risk cards. Oops. What we'll try and do, perhaps we'll put some more detail into the body of the report rather than the risk cards. Might be so if we can pinpoint. Do you want that? Would you want that for every risk or the top risk? Because obviously, if it's all, as it is, 11 risks with a commentary against every ongoing, we could triple the length of the report. Thank you.
Oh gosh, hands up. Councillor Emberson first, I think.
I'll be happy to take like a common sense approach, but it's
Yeah.
like there's one that says undertake a flu exercise, not started. Why not? You know, it's just, you know, like the school, like clearly it's being built. I don't need the project framework for the school, but I just think there's a few where, you know, especially ones that say not started, where it's like, it'd just be helpful to have a bit of context. So I'm happy to take a view on that.
Yes, let's be practical. Councillor Leo.
Yeah, so I found the report, it's the climate change one, and each one is in progress. Now, I can understand how that could be the case because it's likely that we'll have a never-ending battle against climate change. But if that wouldn't be necessarily the case on each item in each section. So are we at the end of the progress or at the beginning? You know, I think that's the sort of, is it sort of 95% complete? We don't necessarily need a score, but some idea of where that would be, I guess, is suppose what we're getting at.
Thank you. Maybe a note of caution because the audit recommendations tracker, I later on in this meeting was going to suggest cutting it down because it's a matter of balance, I suggest, and we need to get that balance right. And we don't want to be overwhelmed with information, but something brief that is explanatory. Perhaps officers could consider that and come up with a clever way of getting that across in a minimum. Maybe we only want that for the red rated, or which would narrow it down, focus it slightly. I realise the others are amber, and that, you know, that constitutes still some significant risk, but we might at least focus in on the red to begin with. Some nods, Councillor Go.
My experience of these sort of things is that some of the ones that are down as red are inherently red as it's a risk. It's not necessarily that it is likely that it is going to happen. It is that if it happens, it's simply one of the most serious things that can happen. And that's, so it's not just the red ones that's going to be, that's going to matter, I guess.
I think, unless officers want to come in, they've heard our concerns and they're all far more professional than I am at this, so they will come up with a good solution, is my guess. And thank you for listening to that. We're tasked with other things as well. For example, are there any risks that we feel are missing from the list that are not on this strategic list? None of us have said there are, but we should consider that. Just briefly, I guess we could also, if we wanted, deep dive into one of these particularly, and I think perhaps in this instance the cybersecurity risk is the one we're going to start to look at in more detail. After that, maybe we're going to come back and say, well, actually, there's one that just is in progress all the way down. I don't want this card anymore. I want a full report on just that one risk. So we can consider asking for that in future and going deeper into a specific risk. So that's something for the future. I requested and received, thank you, the directorate level risk registers informally. So the council isn't publishing the directorate level risk registers for this meeting or in general, but if members wish to see them, they can informally ask and see them. So you'll see everything that's stored at the lower level in case you think something should actually be at the strategic level, and we can ask why it isn't, and we'll probably be told very clearly why it isn't. If in future we wish to actually look at the directorate level risk registers, then we would have to have a conversation with officers in a formal way because they're not currently published, and so that is not part of a report. But there's also something to consider for the future. Well, thank you very much to officers for all this detail, though. Is there any other comments or thoughts at this time? No, we're all shaking our heads. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to the risk team. What's the formal name for it? It can't be called risk team, or is it? What's the department name? Or?
We're a very small team, so we deal with health and safety, risk, emergency planning, and business continuity.
I'm going to learn that for next time.
Chair, I was going to say that's a bit of a risk in itself for a small team.
It's almost single point failure.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed for bringing us all of this. It is really useful, and we'll make it even more useful as we go on. So thank you. We've noted that report, and we can move on to 8, the Treasury Management Review, which will that be Darren? Yeah. Stuart.
Thank you, Chair.
Can't see.
The purpose of this report is to inform the committee of the Council's Treasury management activities for the previous financial year, which ended on 31st of March 2023. The Council has continued to finance capital expenditure through maximising the use of capital receipts, capital grants and internal borrowing to attempt to minimise the need to borrow externally. Last financial year, the Council took out temporary short-term loans, all of less than 1 year in duration, totalling £37 million to assist with managing the cash flow position in line with the borrowing strategy set out within the Treasury Management Strategy that was approved in February 2022. Of those loans, £7 million matured prior to the 31st of March, leaving a total of £30 million carried forward into 2023-2024. No long-term loans were taken out during the year. The Council took the opportunity to repay 2 lender option, borrower option loans, known as LOBOs, early in order to benefit from savings on the Council's capital financing budget over future years. Overall, the Council was under borrowed by £213 million against the capital financing requirement as at 31st of March 2023. As a consequence, the Council effectively avoided the requirement to budget for and incur external interest costs of approximately £8.2 million during the year. Against the general fund budget, there was an overall positive net variance of £3.5 million on the capital financing budget. This budget covers interest payable, interest receivable and the minimum revenue provision. This variance is as reported in the Q4 performance report, which was presented to Policy Committee and approved on 10th of July and is the next item on today's agenda. Finally, I'm pleased to report that the Council did not breach any of its Treasury management performance indicators during the year. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed. We're asked to note the report. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments? Actually, before I throw over, I think it's worth thanking officers because we had a training session on Treasury management at the start of last year, in my memory, which I think was fairly well attended and well worth attending. Either if members didn't attend that last year, or if you'd like to attend it again as a refresher. Is there any interest from members in running that particular training session again, or are you happy that most of us attended that one? Councillor Yo?
I think, I mean, every year we get a reasonable amount of new members, so it's worth these sort of things being offered. Because although last year I think we had about 17 new members, so it was with the all-out elections, even so the cycle is such that we get somewhere between sort of, I don't know, 4 to 8 new people every year, so it's worth offering it, I think.
Councillor Emberson.
Yeah, can we just make sure we look at the dates, because I really struggle as a lead councillor. I've missed, like, I think I missed the risk management one because it's just busy. So it'll be good to get good notice to make sure all of us can go along.
Yes. Is it, so just to officers, is that a training session that could be run again? It is hard for members to make specific times to get everyone there. Can training sessions be recorded and the recording given to members who couldn't make it? Are there methods to get the material to members that can't make it?
So last time we did it, I think we did it an hour before Audit and Governance Committee, knowing that members would be coming in. Whether that works for people who work though, because that still means you've got to get here an hour before the scheduled time. Or if that doesn't work, we could offer it as a Teams style thing, so we can be more flexible and we can actually record the training. So if members of the committee could message me with your views on what the best option would be, we can speak to our treasury management advisors and schedule something in for later in the year and give people plenty of advance notice.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gittings.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, high interest rates are hurting people, you know, it's part of the cost of living crisis, and the council's is also affected by that. But I suppose the flip side is that in 5.13, it's the investment return we're receiving through treasury management, which, because I was pleasantly surprised on the Fire Authority meeting the other day I attended. We'd received sort of 230,000 extra from Treasury Manager than was budgeted. And here in 5.13, we're receiving an extra 1.65 million in the 22-23. So that does help balance that out. So I suppose my question is, do we expect that to continue for 23-24? And will that offset, if you like, the downside in terms of higher interest rates impacting us in other ways?
So yes, interest rates are currently still higher, so they are higher than what we budgeted for when we set the budget. So there is the potential to achieve further interest income. That will largely be dependent on the amount of surplus cash we have to invest, because we're deliberately avoiding borrowing. So we don't have significant amounts of cash surpluses. So I suppose the answer ultimately is it really depends how much cash we have at the time.
Thank you. I missed going to Mike Graham. Apologies. Are you on? We're not on. Is that one on? Yes.
Oh, thank you. It was just on the training, Chair.
Yeah, please.
It was just to note that we do have some slots booked out in the calendar this year for member briefings. Most of those are now sort of getting filled up towards Christmas. But we would have, if it's something which is of interest for a wider group of members, or if you're thinking about recommending Treasury Management to a wider group of members, then slots in January, February would be available, and we could schedule it in good time and advertise it in good time, and in one of the slots where we know members won't have a commitment, so there's a higher chance that they may be able to attend.
Thank you very much. Councillor Emerson, January, February.
I was just laughing because I've never seen one of those actual slots be used for training, so it would be nice if they were.
We had one on Tuesday, I think it was, with climate change. And the first one was in June. You're right. The first one was in June, but then we had to cancel that because of Forbury, because it clashed on the same day. So that's, we're getting going.
I've always blocked it out, and then this year I thought I'm not going to bother because I've never ever done it. So now you're actually doing it. So I'll put it back in.
We can all add those back into our diary now, not just Councillor Emberson. Oh, I've slightly have I lost track? No, I think the training is worthwhile, so we'll have a think about that. And does anyone have any other comments on the report itself? No, it doesn't look like we do. Members, then, are we happy to note the report? Yes. We are. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we have item 9, the Q4 performance and monitoring report. This was received at policy earlier in the month, just a couple of weeks ago, I think. It was agreed at that committee. There was some discussion there. It was all very valuable, I'm sure. Would Darren Carter like to no? Would Stuart like to introduce this one very, very briefly?
Very briefly, thank you, Chair. So this report sets out the provisional revenue and capital outturn positions for the Council's General Fund and Housing Revenue Account for the financial year 2022-2023. The report also sets out performance against the measures of success published in the Council's corporate plan. As you've said, the report was presented to and approved by Policy Committee on the 10th of July. Thank you, and again, happy to take any questions.
Perfect, thank you very much. This comes to Audit and Governance partly because it is trying to answer the going concern question that we're going to be asked at the next meeting. So when we are looking at finalising the accounts, we have to understand the going concern position of the council and potentially of its group companies. And officers will bring us either a briefing session before the meeting or an agenda item itself on the next time. And this I guess we'll understand how exactly the performance and monitoring really interacts with that going concern, but I understand the SIP for guidance is that we should not be undertaking performance and monitoring. So when the new terms of reference come in, we probably won't see this again. That's my hope. However, we have it. So if anyone has any comments or thoughts or even questions. We do not, but I think we will be looking forward to the going concern briefing and understanding at the next meeting. Thank you very much. 10 is the audit recommendations tracker with an introduction from Charlie on screen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to you.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. My live. Thank you very much, Chair. Just to say to the committee that, as always, this is the one that tracks progress by officers in implementing those actions that are recommended within the audit reports where there is limited or no assurance, and outlines the time it has taken to implement the recommendation against that was the date that was recommended it was done. You may remember last time we did discuss that sometimes that the implementation date is changed, but information is not passed. It has been changed, so some of them are out of date. I think a lot of work has been done on it this time to try and make sure that it's much more accurate. You will note that the number of reds have gone down, and I think we are on to 2 by the looks of things now. Both are in housing repairs. One of those actually is probably a date change that should have been noted because it's to do with a systems implementation that won't be happening until later in the year. In fact, 2 systems implementations. The other one is about recruitment, etc., and housing backlogs, but you'll be getting, as you've just asked for, a specific report on that. The other thing to note that some of them, including the intercompany accounts and records management, will be reviewed fairly soon, and therefore if there are differences in when actions have been taken and what dates they should have, those will be cleared. But I think although the numbers of ambers have gone up, it is good to see that the numbers of reds have gone down so that we are getting some progress. So that's the report presented to you.
Thank you very much. Members, we've got this slightly cut down report. It's more focused because we're looking at specific recommendations now, and that is cut down slightly. We can see the direction of travel. Just briefly for members, at our last meeting, we asked an officer to attend to discuss the direct payments, I think it was, and we've had a reply from Melissa Wise. She wasn't available this evening. She sends her apologies, but she will be at the next meeting in September to talk us through that, unless all of the recommendations are closed, which maybe we won't have many questions for her. But if there's any open, she will be here. So thanks to her for that. Members, any comments or thoughts on the recommendations tracker? Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie, for this report. Very detailed and informative. Just on item 3.21, so there was a statement in there for the need to completion by the 30th of June. I just wondered whether that was achieved or not, or what the status is of that.
Sorry, Councillor, what was that paragraph again?
Let's have a look. Sorry, it might be the wrong item actually. I might have jumped the gun. What is this?
We're on the recommendations tracker, which is the big
item 10
spreadsheet.
Right.
We're on item 9.
Item 9. No, I've jumped the gun. Sorry, Charlie.
No, no problem at all.
I'll come back later on.
I'm sure it's a very good question.
Sorry, hold that. But yeah, that question might go to Mike Graham instead. If it's item 10, I bet it's a good one, but we'll wait for the next one. Although, yeah, it might indicate that the information is a little unwieldy in the tracker, which could cause some confusion. I've got a couple of questions on it from the chair. No one's indicating at the moment. The first one was, again, I wonder if quite naturally we're going to focus in on anything that remains red or amber, because the point of this is that we need to ensure that the internal audit recommendations don't just drift off into some ether or void, but that they are tracked and done. Now, if they're green, I feel as though they have been tracked and they have been done, and maybe we don't need to see them. I was wondering whether we could cut the green rated items from this tracker to try and cut it down a little bit so that we can actually focus in. I guess if we had it in Excel, you could filter, but we're getting it as a PDF. I don't know whether members want to see those green ones. Councillor Emberson.
Where would be the track that they've been done though? I thought that was the whole point of them being on there, is to say like they're done. You won't see them now. Maybe you could do it in the report instead of in the spreadsheet. Maybe it could be bullets to say X, Y, and Z has now come off. But I think that is a helpful purpose.
So you're happy to see those track through, they're listed, you've seen them being red and amber, now you've seen them gone green, and we know that they'll go for the next one, but you want to see that journey through.
I think it's helpful, but I do agree with your sentiment that this is quite long. So yeah, maybe there's a workaround, because I think it's proper that it tracks, you know, there's a public report, because I often compare last meetings to this one.
Yeah.
So I find it helpful, but I do agree that it's quite hard on the eye.
I'm not sure it's doing quite what we need, but you might well be right. I might not have a solution. Just cutting out the greens maybe is a bit too drastic. Does anyone else, any other members, have any ideas about how this might serve us better? Not really. We're presented with an awful lot of information, an awful lot of stuff in this. Yeah, well. Councillor,
okay,
Councillor Dennis.
I won't comment on that last comment. I think I'm kind of leaning towards Josh's view on this, that because it did confuse me having those reds saying completed, I must admit, when I went through it, and I think it would be easier on the eye to exclude them, definitely.
So again, I wonder if we could task officers' professional opinions on what they think could be done with this to make it more useful for members, and whether they could take that away, have a think, and maybe propose, if there's a couple of solutions, propose an A or B and a C version, or just something that gets our minds to the most important information in this list, and so that it does what we need it to do. I've got some nods. So yeah, maybe we can ask officers to take that away and see if they can streamline that for us. Yeah, everyone's nodding, so we'll do that. If we could minute that, that would be fantastic. I've got one other question, I think, which was that you see, if you zoom in, embedded in all this text, the new finance system is one of the dependencies for quite a few of these things. And so I wonder, on occasion, we've had an actual agenda item, which is an update on the finance system implementation. But I wonder if we could just briefly ask Darren Carter for a quick verbal update on how that's going.
Yeah, happy to do that. We've taken a big step forward recently on the implementation of the new system, in that we've moved into user acceptance testing. That's a significant step forward for the project. The testing is going okay at the moment. We've got lots of people signed up to do the testing. We're running hundreds of test scripts, and if this is wood, touch wood at the moment, that testing is going well. Assuming it does go well, we are on track for an autumn of this year implementation of the new system. Clearly, if we identify any showstoppers as part of that UAT, we might need to review that situation. But as of today, we're reasonably confident that we will be able to go live autumn of this year.
Fantastic. The September meeting will be a good one for another update. Good timing.
Yeah, so I'm happy to bring a report to the September meeting, which will hopefully be able to confirm everything that I've just said.
Thank you very much indeed. I don't see any other indications. Have we exhausted that one? We've all read through that. Thank you very much, members. Are we happy to, what was the recommended action? Was it to note the report? Are we happy to note the report? Thank you very much, everybody. We are on to, what number are we on? 11, my apologies. Okay, information governance quarterly update, which comes to us from Mike Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to draw Councillors' attention to a few of the items in the report. Firstly, going through them in order, the subject access requests, some good progress is being made there, with some of the more recent requests being dealt with in time and without the backlog building up. We still do have some backlog there, as members will see, and I suppose members might be getting might raise a question about why this project to implement the technology solution, which we found hasn't started. And we got the impression really that the supplier was padding it out a bit with the contract, passing it back and forward because perhaps they didn't have enough capacity to start it. That was our feeling, but they have now signed it and they have now given us a start date. So I'm hopeful that we'll get that underway in September and start to see some improvement on those ones. On the FOI cases, councillors have been on this committee for a while. We'll remember this time last year was when we kicked off the action plan, and the number that I was bringing to you at that point overall was 63%. So we have now moved up in our overall number for the last quarter as some improvement there, which members can see as 81.4%. So it's not at the level that we want it to be, and we've put into the corporate plan, but at least there has been some traction there and there has been some improvement. Members will then note that there are some good figures in the monthly breakdown. The issue that we've got is still consistency and getting them all consistently done in time. But, you know, to get some numbers there which are in the 80s and the 90s, and the FOI team doing obviously the simple ones and coming in at 100%, that helps. So we will continue the work on that. I just was also to remember, ask councillors to remember, we still have 100% of these all done. We're not a council that is leaving their FOIs, they're all getting done. The timeliness is the issue. And the Information Commissioner is taking a more strict approach now to timeliness, and we have seen some councils that have been served with enforcement notices in order to improve timeliness. We have come off their watch list for the time being because they were assured that we were actually doing something and following their guidance. We will just need to prove to them continuous upward improvements to make sure that we stay off the naughty list. And also just to reassure members, we're not getting a large number of complaints about FOIs in terms of not being done or timeliness. So even though we are ourselves trying to bring ourselves up by the bootstraps, it's not all bad news there. So more work to be done. I just wanted to highlight on data transparency there, the issue that some of the information that we have put on there is being reviewed, which I think is something which the committee wanted to know about, and is being checked and is being updated where we find that it is slipping. So we are looking at that, and that was obviously something which was subject to a previous audit report. The Information Governance Board activity. We have also been looking at as we were talking about cybersecurity earlier on in the meeting, we have been looking at the training statistics because we have upgraded the training for all staff and members this year. It is a bigger refresh on cybersecurity training, and we gave everybody to the end of June to complete their training. That hasn't been 100%, and we have discussed in the board about the accountability for that and the recommendations which we will be putting to CMT, so I can update you on that and what's happening at your next meeting. And we have also been looking at those teams whereby there has been more than one breach, or perhaps 2 or 3 breaches. And we have agreed in the board that we will be expecting those teams to be accountable to the board with detailed and specific action plans and measures to address what issues they have. And you will see one in there which was reported through the joint legal team, which had a number of, they said there were unrelated incidents. The common thread was human error, but of course behind that lies issues about things like training, quality of information given to allow staff to know what they were supposed to be doing on particular systems and with particular issues. So there's always something that you can do, even if it looks at first sight that you've got some kind of regrettable human errors. So the work of the board is continuing, and we are looking at a lot of things which are relevant to the issues which we've talked about this evening. The information management strategy is going well. There's a lot of good engagement there between Brighter Futures and DAXs, which is where we started the rollout of the Information Governance Champions Network, and the data stewards which have been appointed by the teams are working very well with the central information governance team. So we'll continue the rollout of that to the other directorates and start to engage them in all the items which are in the information management strategy as well. So those are the matters I wanted to draw to.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Quick question from me. The new Refresh 2023 training, has that been rolled out to members? Have members been requested to?
Yeah, I believe it has, but I will double check.
Have I done
well, you'll know about it because it's got 12 units on it, and it says it takes about 2 hours to complete.
Yeah.
So when you open it, you go, oh my word. When am I going to get to do this?
Right, and then you close it down and don't do it.
No, you can do it quicker if you
if
you know the answers to the questions. If you don't know the answers to the questions, it'll take you 2 hours. But if you know the answers to the questions, you can go through it quicker.
Do we know if uptake and completion has been good with for members?
I don't have those numbers. I can check for you.
Feel free to let us know at the next meeting, and we'll.
Yes. Okay then.
We can encourage any colleagues that haven't managed to do that yet to get that done.
I don't think there's been a notification because I'm hot on those things. I think it might have just gone to new council. Glenn's got his hand up. Maybe he's done it.
Oh yeah, Councillor Dennis.
Well, I've got to admit I have done it. Kate did put out an email to everybody about it, and a link to the quite dreary video. But in any case, yeah, the information in it is quite good.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. You finished on a high there. We're here to encourage uptake of this training, not to discourage. It might be worth just checking. Yeah, okay. We're all busy. Emails can sometimes go astray. We can sometimes hit delete before we mean to, and it's difficult to find a couple of hours for many. But I think on this committee want to encourage all of our colleagues to take on that training and let them and remind them how important it is. Councillor Dennis.
Just to say, you don't have to do the whole thing at one time.
Brilliant. Well, if officers feel free to let us know the uptake amongst elected members, and we'll have a little nudge in that direction. Thank you for the introduction. We've already gone off topic a little bit, but do members have any questions or thoughts on the rest of the report, which has got some really encouraging progress on the FOIs? Councillor Dennis.
I did have that question that I asked 2 items ago. But you did put an answer to that, you know, the fact that you've got in here that you hope to have the people completed by 30th of June. But you stated that they haven't actually completed yet. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's the communications on this are interesting, because if you tell people that lots of them haven't done their homework, they'll think there's safety in numbers, that they're not going to get caught. But with the organisation, the audit committee and at CMT has said this is mandatory training because it's a high risk for the council. The reason that we haven't just given people 2 hours worth of training because we think that will be a useful diversion for them to watch 2 hours of cartoons and do quizzes, but because it's been thoroughly updated to reflect the knowledge which we think people need to have, because humans are the last line of defence. The ICT team have got an awful lot of technical solutions. We had a good presentation to staff the other day, about the number of emails coming at us which are malign and are trying to attack us, and it's in the millions. It's not a few, it's in the millions. It's the vast majority of emails trying to get into our system, but just one of those has to get through. So it is about staff awareness, training, understanding on all those issues. That's why it's detailed, that's why it's thorough, that's why we want everybody to do it. So we will be following up with ADs. It is in the annual governance statement updated that they have to take accountability for their teams to have training on mandatory items. So they are all aware of it. They should have a plan for themselves about how they're going to follow that up. And what we'll be asking next is, well, here's the evidence. What are you doing about it? Because the central team and the Information Governance Board can only, they can only communicate and try and encourage and exhort and crack the whip. But at some point, the rubber's got to hit the road and there's got to be some accountability somewhere. What we know last time was when we adopted an approach of turning off people's computers. We were actually turning off the wrong people's computers, and it was more hassle, and we weren't getting any actual improvement in the stats. So what we need to do now is recommend a different way of approaching it and some timescales around that. And we may want to involve the Audit and Governance Committee in reviewing those statistics and those plans to give yourselves assurance that things are happening.
Absolutely, members. We might even want to ask in any heads of department or whatever where those numbers are particularly low to explain why. But I think that's something for the future. But we have that capacity to invite people to come in and talk to us if we wish. I've asked about the FOI's loads on this committee, so it's really worth me saying that continued improvement is really welcome. Thank you very much to everyone who's worked hard on that. It's still a way off, obviously, the 95% that's in the corporate plan, but that is going to be a particularly difficult target to hit, I suspect. But it's worth keeping that ambition, because that should drive those numbers up, and they are going up. So thank you very much indeed. Members, do we have anything else for this report? No, nothing. I have nothing else either. Are we happy to note it? And that will be the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. The next one's September. So have a lovely summer. Thank you. Thank you very much, officers who attended. Thank you very much to Charlie, who attended remotely.